In this video, you're going to see a 1 hour live training I did with Smart Leads community where I covered everything you need to know to make sure your cold emails are successful going into 2025. I cover the basics of cold email, how to write scripts, how to build lists, how to make sure your emails land in the inbox, and basically everything you need to know to make sure your cold emails are successful, your campaigns are successful, and you generate leads. This is super thorough and super in-depth. There was also a Q&A section where the over 200 people that were live, some of them were able to come and ask questions, and so you can see me answer some of the questions that some of you guys might be thinking right now. So go ahead, watch this video. Hope you enjoy.
Thank you so much for taking the time every week. And I was telling Matt, it's been a while since he's come here, and we have a lot of secret sauce from Matt's end today. And most of you know Matt, but a quick round of introduction. Matt is the founder of Anivo Marketing. He is also a cold email strategy coach for 350 plus agencies, right? And for those of you who are new, who don't know Matt, I can keep going on an introduction for you, but we'd love to hear from you, sir. Please, a quick round of introduction.
Sure. Yeah. My name's Matt. I live in Tampa. We send a little bit of couple cold emails here and there, but I run an agency. We send a bunch of cold emails for a bunch of different clients who work with all kinds of different industries. I've seen a lot of campaigns. We launch like a handful of campaigns every single day for our customers. And then, yeah, like Akash said, I coach a bunch of people in a coaching group. Shout out Client Ascension, super cool guys. So I see campaigns like every single day. I see this all the time. I've seen a lot of stuff, and so hopefully I can share some of the knowledge with you guys if you need help with something. And yeah, I can share some of the stuff that works pretty well in my experience. So
thank you, Matt. And you guys know how this goes. We have a few questions, and today especially, we're going to go to the fundamentals, right? So we're going to go to the foundation of cold emailing, strategies, and copies, AI stuff, etc. But as you know, once my questions are over, we'll be picking things from chat. We'll also have the floor open for questions. So at the end, when the floor is open for questions, raise your hand and we'll also spotlight you, right? But jumping straight into the topic, Matt, first topic I wanted to discuss for today is cold email foundations and strategy, right? Coming back to the OG, coming back to the base, the foundation. What is the anatomy of a high performing cold email, right? And when I say this, what I mean is, let's say, how do we structure, how do we work on the messaging, and how do we work on personalization? Because that's the core, and that's a major part of cold emailing. So we'd love to hear your thoughts, sir.
yeah, for sure. So yeah, like just starting out super baseline. I think there's the framework that I've come about myself is very similar to like a lot of the stuff you'll hear in the cold email space. And I think that like generally the script is important. Don't get me wrong, but like there's so many other core components. A lot of people like really hyper fixate on their script, but in reality, they're targeting the wrong people. Their deliverability is a mess. When it comes to scripts, very simple. Hi name, reason why I'm reaching out to you specifically. That's like the most important part. Instead of just like, hey, John, saw you have a white t-shirt. Here's what we sell. Like being specific. Hey, John, I noticed that you had something wrong with your website. We can help fix that. Hey, John, saw that, your website load speed is very slow. We have a widget that can help improve that. So first calling out, hey, this is why I'm reaching out to you. Ideally, call out something specific you notice with them. That's the best. If you can't do that, just ask them if they have the pain. So, hi, John, do you have this problem? The best is, hey, John, I saw you have this problem, but that's like about as good as you can get if you don't have anything there. The next thing is value proposition. Talk about what you're selling. So again, hi, John, saw your website is slow. We have a widget that does X, Y, and Z that can help speed up your website load time. So tell them in clear, plain English what you do. The biggest issue I see here after coaching a bunch of people is that like I'll look at their email and it has this like all this text, everything there, and then I'll ask them on the side, I'm like, real quick, can you just tell me like what your product does? And they're like, oh yeah, it's like a widget that helps improve website conversion speed. And it's like, awesome. That's what you say, right? If I ask V, like, what does your tool do? It's a email sending platform that allows you to use warm-ups, rotate your inboxes, and manage your deliverability in one place for as little as $37. That's the value prop. That's what you say. That's what the product does, and you say it in a sentence. And then the last piece, I'll actually circle back. The last piece is the call to action. Very clear. Hey, here's the next steps. If you have some sort of lead magnet or something you can offer, that's great. And then the fourth piece, I said there's three. There's three core components. Why you're reaching out, what you're selling, and then the CTA. The fourth piece is objection handling. So you want to go back and read your email and pretend you're the recipient. What are all the objections I'm going to get? I'm going to read this email. hey, I don't believe this component. What can you do to make your email more believable? Hey, I don't trust that you can actually get this result. Prove some authority that you can get the that you can do the claim that you're saying. So
Right.
at the end, the four components are there's three true components. It's reason why you're reaching out, value proposition, CTA, and then the last step is to reread your email, pretend you're the recipient, and ask yourself, hey, what can I do to make this email more believable, increase the trust, or like pre-handle objections? Like if you're selling virtual assistants, huge objection. Do they speak English well? Are they gonna, are they gonna be able to do my task? There's all these different objections you can handle in your email. So long-winded answer, but in short, reason why you're reaching out, value proposition, call to action, and then once you're done, reread it from the eyes of the recipient and basically
Right.
tear it apart. So
This is solid. Solid. Like these are the key pointers we need to look at. And this brings me to my next question as well, Matt. This is in terms of messaging, this is how you structure your copy. But I think we had this conversation yesterday as well. But if you're reaching
yeah,
out to the wrong people, this might not work, right? You might not get replies, you might not get responses, might not drive anything. So, what are your thoughts there? What is buyer psychology? And how do you understand your buyer persona? So, how do you understand your audience basically?
yeah, great question. And this is a super overlooked part because people don't realize, like, especially for the guys who run their own businesses, you talk to customers every day, and sometimes you just like forget, again, sit in the eyes of your customer. The best question, I actually think I have this as an onboarding question in our
Right.
agency now, is
Mhm.
tell me the last five people that you closed. Not the last five people you talked to, not the last whatever. Last five and ideally
People we
10, like
close.
the more the merrier.
Right.
Show me the last people that paid you and gave you money. Okay. That's
Right.
step one. Step two is sit there. And if you have a sales call based process, that's amazing. Listen to the sales call. Why did they buy? What are their objections? Why, like, what was the persona? So then you can realize because it's not as simple as let me just, in my case, I sell cold email services. It's not just send cold emails out to everyone. There's different buyer personas, there's different reasons why they buy. One reason why people buy might be predictable revenue. Another reason why people buy is because their last agency sucked. Another reason why people buy is
Right.
because their deliverability sucked. Another reason why is they want time savings. Those are like four different ones, but that I can hypothesize for. But if I look at my last five sales calls, like for me specifically, I know that there's like a segment of my customers that don't even care that I'm doing cold email. They just want meetings. The other segment are like super sophisticated and they care about deliverability. And
Right.
so if I'm reaching out to the general market, I'm probably going to pick the mass market approach again. But like some people will then, they don't do the research, will have the super niche specific approach and they're reaching out to the wrong audience or vice versa. They have the super broad approach and they realize why people buy it.
Right.
There's a lot of nuance. So the recommendation I would give to everyone watching is just if you run a business or if you're a part of a sales team or whatever, look at the last five people that close. Think through what are those personas because I might think again, hey, I work with marketing agencies, private equity, SaaS companies, recruiting agencies, whatever. But maybe out of the last five people that close, like 70% of them were marketing firms, and then that might lead me to think, all right, let's park the other ones to the side and go there. So again, long-winded answer, but really you just want to analyze the people not only that you think could pay you money, but the people that just did pay you money. That's like seriously the easiest layup, how you get like the good audiences and like where a lot of the devil's in the details there. So yeah.
Absolutely. It makes a lot of sense, right? And it all aligns in a certain way. And Matt, earlier you said, you send few cold emails, but we know the kind of volume you're handling right now. But
Yeah.
and you're the best person to ask this. You've been doing this for a lot of verticals, a lot of people. You've been coaching people as well. What is one thing you come across? What are the common mistakes people are making right now when it comes to cold email?
Yeah. Also, very good question. And there's a lot. I think the biggest ones, the first mistake, if I could categorize this as a whole, it's, what you just alluded to at the beginning of the webinar. It's not focusing on the fundamentals. They'll go super deep. Like you guys 100% watch videos on Clay, learn the super advanced stuff, learn how to do the crazy AI personalization. But the stuff that ultimately makes a difference is have your deliverability set up somewhat okay, right? Make sure that people are seeing your emails. Reach out and that actually are your target market and then clearly articulate what you're even selling. If you can get those three things done, you're going to get some form of results, assuming your product is wanted and needed in the market, right? That's another piece. Make sure you're selling something that
Absolutely.
people want. But the core issues I see are issues that number one, their deliverability is a nightmare, complete mess. Like the reply rates are in the like point, 2%. Like that's an issue, right? First thing,
Right.
and again, deliverability it's not as complicated as people make it out to be. You set up a bunch of email accounts. If they don't do well, you set up more email accounts. Like that's one part of it. And again, I'm oversimplifying it. A lot of the guys watching this here get the nuances. You get the inbox rotation, you get the email warm up, you get the ramp up time. Like I could talk about DMARC, DKIM, SPF, but that's one piece, right? And again, those are basics. But for the most part, it's set up a lot of email accounts, have low volume across a lot of them. That's the one piece. Second thing that I think is probably the most overlooked is on the lead side. People will go
Right.
to an Apollo, a Zoom Info, a whatever. They'll scrape a huge
Mhm.
list of leads and they're just not even accurate, right? The exercise I would tell a lot of you guys to do, again, super simple exercise. Go look at your last campaign. Look at 10 people. Like most people, they'll sit in their Apollo dashboard, they'll grab the leads or list kit or whatever tool you're using, and they'll just grab the leads and they don't even see who they're reaching out to. They're like, yeah, CEO, owner, founder, marketing, right? Then you realize, oh, I want to reach out to marketing agencies, but half the people on the list are like billboard companies or they're like t-shirt design companies, which is a marketing. Like this is all the stuff people overlook. So go look at 10 people in your lead list and ask yourself, if I sent them this email that I'm going to send to 10,000 people, would these 10 people respond? And what you come to find out is that like most of the time it's no. Most of the time you realize 3 out of the 7 aren't even the right people. 3 out of the 7, the value prop makes no sense for them because they're a marketing manager instead of like a CEO. Like this stuff is all the time. I see this every single day. And it is not a surprise. Like if you look at your cold email campaign, you look at the
Mhm.
messages you're sending and the people you're reaching out to,
Right.
the results are never a surprise. It's never like, wow, I hit the perfect persona with the perfect messaging and no one responded. It's like you either were totally off on one of them or your list was inaccurate. And then
Right.
that second piece tying with the list, if you have an inaccurate list, let's say I reach out to a list of 10,000 e-commerce stores, which I think they're e-commerce stores, and 3,000 of them, 30% of them aren't even e-commerce stores. If you go to them and you say, "Hey, I came across your e-commerce store," everyone's going to report you as spam. They're going to
Right.
those 3,000 people are like, "This guy's spamming me. I don't run an e-commerce store." And that's what causes deliverability issues. So it's all kind of one and the same. Again, I'm kind of oversimplifying a lot of it. You guys have if you guys have seen a bunch of the webinars like I can talk at length about deliverability. I want to talk about the stuff that like specifically I see almost everyone mess up on is they get super in the weeds of like all the different deliverability stuff when you're just like the stuff that Google publishes is the stuff you know for sure is right, right? Google publish, have your DMARC, DKIM, SPF, and keep your spam compliance rate low,
Right.
ideal less than 0.3%, right? And some of that's for, email marketing and they went back on that a little bit. But the point is that if you send spammy emails, you're going to have deliverability issues. You could have one domain send 1,000 emails a day, and if none of your emails got reported as spam, you probably wouldn't have any issues. By virtue of sending cold emails, people are going to report as spam. But like the core fundamental thing is make sure you're reaching out to the right people and like do your diligence. A lot of you guys probably know it. You're just not putting in the work and like looking through your leads, filtering it out. I'd recommend. Again, Clay can be useful for this. Use AI. Say, hey, I'm reaching out to this persona. Is this person this persona? If not, put no. If yes, put yes. Run those people in the campaign. And that's probably the biggest one. On the copy side, people do pretty well. The biggest thing I see on the copy side is just too long,
Right.
or you can't articulate what you're saying. I could ask you a question like, what do you do? And you're like, email sending platform. And then you look
Yeah.
at the script or whatever of someone who sells something like that, and it's like, we're gonna help you do this, 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 and it
And
mentions nowhere that you're an email sending platform and you do this. So, anyways, long-winded answer
absolutely,
again, but
you're
those.
spilling gold here, Matt. You're spilling gold here. And
Yeah.
a quick round of announcement. Matt is also a part of our expert panel. So every smart lead user who's custom 90K and above can book a meeting with Matt. How do you do it? Reach out to me. I'll drop my email address on the chat. You can drop a message. You can drop an email to me. You can reach out to me on the community as well, and we'll set up the call for you. Right. So any custom 90K user and above has access to this. You can book a meeting with Matt. Just reach out to me, and I'll set it up for you guys. But Matt, you're spilling gold, and that brings me to my next question as well. Talking about you mentioned about personalization. Use Clay to personalize your copies, identifying your personas, etc. And as you said, one more thing that we've been commonly hearing is people say conversational copies work, and people also say if a copy looks AI generated, you're getting flagged, right? So how do you leverage AI and how to write like a human, right? So it's basically uh, one thing I heard. I don't know if this is true, right? They also say when you go too hyper personalized, they can understand the copy looks AI generated, etc. So what are your thoughts on that, and how to write like a human, balancing personalization at scale, Matt?
Yeah, I think that best exercise for this, read your email, pretend you're getting the email yourself. Like I don't know about you guys, especially if you're a founder and you're listed in Apollo or one of these databases, you get cold emails all the time. It's very easy. Just like, business owners, like you can sit there and hyperfixate on your product. When you're a consumer of a product, it's very easy to look at the issues, right? If I get a cold email, it's very obvious to tell like this one sucks or this one's good. And it's because I'm reading, I'm the recipient. When I'm sitting on the Smartly dashboard or wherever, I think I'm a genius, I'm writing up all this stuff, but then you just read it back and you're like, yeah, this looks kind of
Right.
weird. So I would say like the easiest exercise, just pretend you received it, right? It's kind of hard sometimes if you're selling a product that's completely different than something that would be sold to you, but try and twist it so it's like, hey, I just read back my emails. I'll literally go like inside Smartly. Do you have like the send test email function? I'll do it. I'll pull it up on my phone, right? I'll read the email, look at it on my phone, and I try and get in the mindset again of the recipient. Like, a lot of these people, they're not sitting there like staring at your email, hyper fixating on everything. They're outside, right? They're outside with their family, with their kids. They see a pop up on their phone, and it's some random guy asking for, a demo or
Absolutely.
whatever, right? So I think the easiest way to sound like a human is just to read it from the lens of the recipient, and also to like again, you don't need to hyper jam every single thing into an email. We've had cases with customers where we pull out personalization, but just because it sounds too forced. Like a really good example is like company name. A lot of people do this. Like, hey, would this be useful for your team over at Smart Lead, right? Versus like, what would I say if I wrote that email? I would say, hey, would this be useful for your team, right?
Right.
Because that's how people converse. And that also gives the opportunity if you mess up your personalization, like, hey, I saw, would this be useful for your team at Smart Lead LLC or whatever? And it sounds like really terrible. So use it when it sounds relevant, read it back as a recipient. Easiest way to do this, send 10 test emails to you, pretend you're the guy reading it, and like, does it sound weird? And like that's really like the easiest way. Just pretend you're the recipient. So
Absolutely. And before I go to my next question, answering Mr. Answering Kelly on the chat, no, answering Gerard on the chat. So what I was saying, any custom 90K user and above can book a meeting with Matt, and you can simply drop an email to me. I've dropped my email address in the chat. It's akash@smartly.ai, and I will set it up for you. Yeah, it's as simple as that. And Matt, picking one question from the chat, you might get this a lot. What are the number of emails I can send from a domain? 3 inboxes, so Gmail doesn't block my inboxes.
yeah. So Gmail doesn't block it. And I think funny enough, Gmail again, like go to there's two things, right? So what do they say publicly? They say publicly you can send up to 2,000 emails from an account per day, right? Realistically, no one's doing that. And I would not recommend that. The biggest factor is I like to think of like sending cold emails from an email account like a speed limit, or like you're driving a car and you're speeding, right? Except
Right.
the speed limit isn't posted anywhere. So if you are driving obnoxiously and you're going 20 miles an hour over the speed limit, everyone sees that as super obvious, and you're being, a jerk. You're gonna
Right.
get pulled over faster if you're in your red Ferrari driving down the road crazy than if someone's driving down the road 20 miles an hour over in their tiny little economy car and they're being polite with it. Same ideas with email. There's no like rule, right? Again, Google's not publishing and saying you can, they say you can send up to 2,000 a day, but they're not
Right.
saying, hey, send 5 a day, 10 a day, 15 a day, 20 a day. A lot of that is, again, determined by what my hypothesis is, because it's a black box at the end of the day, is spam reports, right? We have
Right.
customers we send more emails account per day per inbox, no issues. People we send very little from, and there is issues. And it comes back down to relevancy. So I recommend personally set having no more than 2 inboxes per domain, because I've just seen more issue, like more inboxes you add to a domain, more issues. The perfect scenario is you have 1 inbox per domain, in my eyes, or at least from what I've
Got it.
tested. The more you add, the more problems.
Right.
And so I would recommend like I see off whenever I run like 2 emails per account, I usually send anywhere from 10 to 20. Usually sweet spot's about 15. But
Right.
again, like your mileage may vary. I have customers who they perform really well. I turn up the volume, no issues. I have customers who, the offer just doesn't resonate, and then you turn down the volume and there's still issues. So again, at the end of the day, a lot of it's spam reports, and there's no like golden bullet that like, hey, this is the perfect answer for that.
Got it.
So
And
yeah.
Kelly, I hope that answered your question. And Matt, coming back to what we were talking about, again, reiterating the point that you do this on a large scale, and I have an idea of the kind of automations you have set up. So,
Mhm.
is there a recommendation for best tools and automation strategies that people can have? Because at this point, the whole point of cold emailing smartly, the tools in the market is to automate everything, right? And smartly
Yeah.
is powerful when it comes to that. So, what are some tools that you would recommend to our users, and what are a few automation strategies that you would recommend our users to have?
So in terms of tools, yeah, there's a lot of tools I like. Like the biggest one now, my core tech stack, I'm looking at literally like my bookmarks bar. It's like the websites are the
Right.
most. Number one, Smartly. Number two is Clay, just because Clay a lot of people are confused with like what you even use Clay for. Like sophisticated guys get it. It's like, okay, you can use it for a million different things. The core point value prop of Clay is that you can automate a lot of the workflows. Like you can pull in 10 different tools, do it way faster, and you can use AI and all kinds of other stuff. I would say Clay is a huge part. Another one that's really useful is Airtable. Airtable is good to house a lot of data. I would say it's not necessary mandatory tech stack. If you run an agency, it's probably going to be like a good addition. Make
Right,
Zapier also very, very good on the automation side. And for the
right,
most part, I would say like that's when it comes to automation specifically and like building out your workflow, a lot
right,
of my core automation tech stack is yeah, make Zapier, Airtable, and then yeah, Slack, Smart Lead, Clay. Like that's really most of it. Like we have a lot of workflows again, tied to an agency
right.
built in Airtable and Slack. It's for like client comms and reporting and all that stuff. But those are really the core tools.
Absolutely. Makes a lot of sense. And we covered the fundamentals, man. You told us how to write copies. We spoke about how to target the right audience. And we also spoke about automations and best tools in the market, right? So my next and last topic for me personally would be deliverability. Because
Hmm.
that's, as you said, it's a piece of everything, right? One thing can go wrong and your cold emails can't work. So what are the do's and don'ts for deliverability? And how can people avoid spam traps?
Yeah, for sure. So I would say, in terms of deliverability, right? Core stuff, basic stuff. I'm sure, again, I'm saying this with the assumption a lot of these guys have heard it a million times. But again, like half the issues I see is not someone didn't do some crazy Clay AI personalization, whatever. It's they just didn't validate their emails or they didn't set
Right.
up a DMARC
Right.
record. They use some janky provider to like, do whatever, right? In terms of deliverability. Google and Microsoft, gold standard. I've seen success with SMTP too, right? Like
Right.
almost all the providers work. If you use a relatively reputable provider, Google, Microsoft, like set up email accounts, less emails per, less per day per account, less emails per domain. I typically see as better. And then yeah, like use warm up tool, warm up for 14 is
Right.
longer. We've seen more success for accounts that have been, aged longer. Anecdotally, again, I don't have the super crazy data analytics. Like I try and run split tests, but candidly, it does take up like a huge amount of effort. But after just analyzing and like getting a feel for like looking at so many accounts, it's like the people who send emails that are like the strategy component really is a huge part of deliverability. Sending relevant
Right.
emails that people actually want to receive. That's like one of the biggest pieces. And then yeah, sending low amounts of emails per day, having a lot of email accounts, setting up the core, your SPF, your DKIM, your DMARC, warming up your emails for as long as possible. 14 days plus is ideal. 21, if you can do it for a full month, amazing. And then yeah, don't send a ton of emails per account. If things start to change, like, and I'd recommend for a lot of guys who do see issues with email accounts burning or whatever, have like a backup lineup. So if let's say you plan on sending from 50 email accounts, if your budget can account for it, make another 50 email accounts in the backup. So if anything does happen, you're ready to go on the back burner and those accounts have more time to warm. And like then I'm not a huge fan of rotating just because of like the time intense. Like it is a very logistically intense thing. If you're able to do it, awesome. If not, like set up accounts, have more in the back burner. If they fail, swap them in, get a new
Right.
account set up, and then you can get that flow going.
And that makes a lot of sense. Your operations doesn't stop. You have backup and things keep running. Yeah, absolutely fair. And Matt, what are your recommendations on infrastructure? Because ideally, falling back, that's where people start. They're confused as to how do I set it up, which provider is
Yeah.
working, is Outlook working, Gmail working, should I go for an SMTP? So, what are your recommendations around that?
More is better, right? I personally like right now, I think the trend that I'm seeing, and I think a lot of other email guys would agree, is that Gmail's like probably if I could pick one sender, Gmail, Outlook, or SMTP, I'd probably just do Gmail, right? Right
Right.
now, at was this? This is February 27th, 2025. That's my opinion, right? That changes. Last year, this time, I think Outlook was performing better.
Yeah.
So I would say having more is not bad. I think if you like, you can either do 100% G Suite, some Outlook, you can do 50-50 split, you can do 33, 33, 33. Again, I think going back to our prior, like the zooming out conversation of just low spam reports, whatever, like I'm sure there's people crushing with like the worst setups possible, but they're just sending relevant emails to people that like want to receive them at a reasonable scale and like they're not seeing issues. But I would say like the best setup is the most diversified, the realistic one for a lot of people watching, because I can talk about the best everything all the time. But in
Right.
reality, a lot of you guys aren't going to sit there and spend 10 hours trying to set up 10 different providers. Like, I would say if you're going to pick one right now, Google is working well. The ideal setup is like half and half, or at
Right.
least some Microsoft, maybe 70-30 is what I do for a lot of customers.
Absolutely. Right.
And then, yeah, like, set it up. less email accounts per domain. You can do 2 emails per domain, and then yeah, let it warm for 14 weeks, set up the records properly, and then above all else, again, don't send spammy emails. Check your list and spammy emails. Again, that matters a lot with your list too. If you're sending to the wrong people, you will get spam reports. Your email can be perfect, it could be not spammy, but if you're saying, "Hey, I just saw you run an e-commerce store," and they don't run an e-commerce store, you're already like it's done, right? Like that's
Right.
already being a spam report, and it's gonna hurt your setup really not good. So.
Absolutely. Makes a lot of sense. And I had this conversation yesterday as well, right? So some people, one thing I see is when they have everything set up under one provider, you might not really know if there's a problem. You do not have backup if the provider decides to do something. So when you have a mix and match of both, you understand where the problem is. And you can also, I just saw Vaibhav's message, send Akash spam emails. Please do. I don't mind. But yeah, absolutely, man. Makes a lot of sense. And one last question from my end. You're a power user of Smart Lead. And we have most of our users here are Smart Lead users. So, what are few Smart Lead best practices you would recommend? You mentioned about warm-ups, you spoke about automation as well, but just a quick overview so that we grasp it all. What are some
Yeah,
best practices you recommend for Smart Lead users?
specifically for smart lead, like again, and some of the stuff is like theoretical. Also, I want to be clear, there's a lot of cold email talk about like you should do this, you should do that. I try and be as honest as possible. It's like, hey, I have stuff that's theoretical and stuff I can back by data.
Right.
I'm gonna share some stuff that like in theory that what I think is better. And like again, I don't have the concrete numbers. I like to
Right.
space my emails out as much as possible. So if you have like a sending window of 8 hours,
Mhm.
I'm gonna set like the email account to like space out the emails for like 20 minutes or 30 minutes, right? I think
Right.
Smartly defaults like 7 or whatever, and so I space out
Absolutely.
as long as
Okay.
possible. I personally see more success specifically with disabling the email auto adjust warm up. I like to send like a 1-to-1 ratio of cold to warm. So I like to send, maybe from an email account, you send 20 cold, 20 warm, or like randomize from
Right.
that. Spin tax, leverage it a lot. Smart Lead allows you to also do that in the signatures, which is cool. So you can leverage spin tax as much and as frequently as possible.
Right.
That's another thing that I would say is useful. Smart Lead, definitely use the APIs. APIs are great. And other best practices specifically, trying to think specifically the platform. ESP matching, I've heard is kind of like in the air. I've heard some people say like, hey, you should do it. Some people don't do it. I think I see a little bit higher results. Again, I haven't
Right.
run the super concrete split test. I think it's a little bit more favorable when you have that setting enabled. Other than that, that's specific to smart leads. Yeah, I'd say a lot of this stuff is just general, like, send low volume, don't send 50 cold emails per account per day unless, if it works, it works. But yeah, I would say like those are the big ones that come to mind for me right now. So
Absolutely, Matt. And makes a lot of sense. And you covered it all, right? And sometimes I feel we look at the wrong way, we overcomplicate things. It could be something
yeah.
as small as reaching out to the wrong person or oversending that could be causing the problem, right? So this is gold. You gave us gold, and these are all the questions that I had. But people, now the floor is open for questions. If you have any, if you want to talk to Matt right now, please raise your hand, turn on your video, and I'll spotlight you. You can shoot a question straight to Matt. But before that, Vaibhav was unmuted, sir. Do you have anything to say, please?
Thank you for catching that. Alrighty, everyone. I'm not going into an ad now. I'm very conscious of what I'm going to say, but 2 pointers. Everyone, you've actually got at minimum 200 requests per minute as of last week with your APIs. So the rate limit's been pretty much, if you're on the 60, about 3.5x for you. And for those who are on the higher plans, you know us. You can reach out. You can get upper limits as well. So go nuts, enjoy it, love it. With that being said, one piece on this, as Matt mentioned, as Akash mentioned, we've now released our own certified consulting expertise angle. What that means is any single one of you over here on the custom 90K plan or above who are looking to improve your campaigns, you're not getting the results you want to get, you want to even maybe hand it over to someone who's trusted, vetted, and knows how to do their stuff. We are paying out of our pocket. Well, you're paying us. We're taking your money, making better use of it instead of buying crypto. We're paying incredible people like Matt for their time and their expertise and other experts as well to help you be much, much, much better at your overall outbound as well as result generation. So Matt's done this for a few customers already, and it's been nothing but raving feedback for that. So if you're interested, like Akash mentioned, or just ping support chat saying I want to set up CPP or Certified Partner Program consulting call, and we will go ahead and get access to your information. We'll do a full audit, and then you'll have a consultant that we vet and you know very well will give you active feedback on the house from our side. So yeah, that's super something that's super exciting for us, and we're very, very happy to share that service for all of you. Great.
Sweet. Abdullah's up. Spotlighting you, sir. Here you go. Yep. Can you unmute yourself? Go for it.
Yeah, perfect. First of all, thanks a lot for this session. Been really helpful.
Thank you.
It's something that kind of wasn't mentioned on this call today. I joined 10 minutes late, but either way, I mean, it's also related to Smart Lead, and it's specifically about follow-ups, right? And I've been really trying my best to hone down on like the subsequences inside Smart Lead and this kind of stuff. So I'd love to hear if you've used them before. How have you used them? Because sometimes what I notice is, for example, I'm running a campaign, follow-up sequences are going, and then I would still want that campaign to be sending, the follow-ups inside the subsequence. But if I pause that campaign or stop it, it's not going to send. So sometimes I'm thinking, hey, is it better just do the follow-ups manually, right? And what kind of structure should I follow for follow-ups? And also how that relates to the Smart Lead subsequences. Thanks.
Yeah, for sure. I would say, and again, actually, that's a good question because I'm not sure. I didn't think that if you pause the campaign that the subsequence pauses under that as well. And I mean, if you're going to pause the campaign, like that's under the assumption you're probably not going to run anymore. If you have I don't think following up manually is a bad idea. I think honestly, if you have the time to do it, do follow up manually. The point that like V alluded to and Akash alluded to as well. A lot of people use Smartly because you're trying to automate processes. You're trying to make your life easier, trying to streamline things. Now, if you want the most effective thing possible, the most effective thing possible is manually send emails to everyone and hyper personalizes if you wrote to a human. And the best thing possible is also for you to manually write everything all the time ever, right? Realistically, most people can't do that. Now, with follow-ups, if you have the time of day to where you can spend 5, 10, 20 minutes a day, hey, I'm going to spend some time writing some follow-ups. I think that's the best approach. If you can spend 5 minutes, write a custom loom. This is more of like a sales question than it is like an automation question of like the best approach is for you to do everything manually, always, right? The most scalable approach is typically the automation approach. And so it really depends on what you're prioritizing and what scale you're operating at. If you're just doing it for yourself or a handful of customers, if you're running an agency, I would say manually is not even a bad idea. And especially because you can write your follow-ups custom to their pain points. You can like if you have 5 minutes where you can like record a loom. Again, this is talking about the sales conversation as well. Anything custom does so well, like so much better. It's not even funny. Like my close rates go up whenever I make custom assets for my customers. So if like someone books a call with me and I make a custom video, I'm like, hey, super excited to chat. Here's 5 cold email ideas I had for you. Here's a script I had for you. Let's talk in, 20 minutes from now. They're going to come to the call so much more excited. If you do that on your follow-ups too, they're going to book higher. So again, talking through like sales strategy and like making sure you're getting the most bookings possible, doing manually is awesome. Smart leads, subsequences, I use it all the time because again, if you're doing it at scale and you get like 50 positive replies a day, 100 positive replies a day, it can get really tedious really quick. But that's, I would say, hopefully that answers your question. But I would say manually, if you have the time and if you want to do it and if you want to invest it, if it's something copy and pastable, then yeah, you can use subsequences. And also it depends how much time you want to invest into it. So.
Okay. That's great. Thanks a lot for this. And just something to like note, I think it'd genuinely be really good to like be able to pause a campaign but still keep the subsequence running. So this kind of like for the Smart Lead in here. But yeah, that's kind of
Yep.
my thoughts on it. But yeah,
Absolutely. Thank you for the feedback. We'll definitely have a
thanks.
conversation with Forex
Thanks a
regarding
lot,
it.
Matt. Cheers.
Good.
Of course. Sounds good.
All right. Next up, Adrian. Sir, I see you're probably having a walk. Appreciate you joining. And here you go. Love the beard.
Thank you very much. I got that. I got that a lot while being in India a couple of years ago. Thank you for all the great information. We started using the smart delivery stuff recently, and we ran it on all of our campaigns. And some campaigns perform like amazing, like from all points of view. But we have some campaigns with over 95% deliverability, but somehow they only have like 0.25 to 0.99 reply rate. Is that always just a campaign copy issue, or is there anything else we can do?
I would say, in my experience, the main value that I found in smart delivery is guessing what the campaign results are going to be before they go live. When you run the campaign and the real results come in, like that's obviously going to be your best North Star in results. Now, again, deliverability is a black box. There's a million different reasons why whenever you send an email to a smart delivery account versus you send it to a normal recipient, that the results are different. Like one really obvious example is IT team. So for example, if I run a company and I hire an external IT firm, I can tell them to make my spam filters whatever I want. I can say reject all emails that have a domain that's less than 1 year old. I could say, hey, like quarantine emails that I don't want to receive. There's a million different rules that they can make up, how they have different internal policies. So there's a lot of reasons why that those results might differ. What I would say, like personally, what I found a lot of value in smart delivery for is not trying to like fight reality. It's like, oh, smart delivery says this, the campaign says this, who's right? Like obviously you take the campaign results at face value. The point in value I see in smart delivery is number one, you can warm up your campaign copy, but number two is you can guess what the results are going to be like prior to the campaign going live. And so I would say like if your campaign's live and you're seeing those results, I would recommend just like taking the results at face value. If you're getting a 0.25 to 0.99, that might indicate that you might need new email accounts. It could indicate copy. It could indicate a lot of things. I think like the point of smart delivery again is to kind of steer you before you run a campaign to know what your results are going to look like and hopefully like help you guide in the right direction. Like there's cases, or if you run a smart delivery campaign, you're getting like a 40% spam rate. It might be like, hey, let me like hold off and like do a little bit more analysis before running the campaign. But yeah, at the end of the day, if you're getting like 0.25 to 0.99, I don't know your exact target market offer, all that type of stuff. If you reach out to enterprise markets, you're going to see less results. There's a lot of different factors that like might pull or push it. But I think one reason that could be, it still could be the email account deliverability. So again, like there's a lot of reasons why that could be. The first thing I'd look at, yeah, again, email account deliverability. If you have the money in capital, like go set up some new accounts, run a split test, and then use real campaign data. The other thing, it could be copy, it could be list, it could be a lot of different factors. And like I was talking about earlier in the webinar, list could be a huge piece. You know, if you're sending out emails to people that are meant to receive emails like the smart delivery ones compared to random people that might not be the relevant decision makers, your results are going to look very different. So I guess zooming all the way out, I would say take the smart delivery and delivery as a whole. There's not going to be a surefire 100% everything's perfect. Take all those things as a grain of salt, and then you can make a good assessment on whether or not you need new accounts. I'd recommend in your case, set up 20 new accounts, split test it, and then see if the 20 accounts perform better, it's an infrastructure issue. If the 20 accounts perform the same, it might be a copy or lead list or something else issue. Does that make sense? Awesome.
Thank you, Adrian. Thank you, Matt. Next up, we have Sam. Sam, good to see you, sir. Hope you're doing well. Here you go.
Hey Matt, I was wondering what you currently see working to inbox on Outlook specifically because I always segment my campaigns based on ESB. So I tag the delete list. So it's Google and Outlook, and I can see the campaigns next to each other. And it's like a 10x difference, obviously, at the moment for Outlook and Google. Like I have like 5% reply rate on Google, and then Outlook is always under 1%. No matter what I try really to adjust the copy, or like I didn't really manage to crack Outlook. So I was wondering if you have any specific nuggets for Outlook to inbox there.
Yeah, so specific to this, first of all, I just want to make like a macro comment on like deliverability. If you like, I think Outlook deliverability right now is kind of wonky because I mean, you could like go on Reddit and like talk to just normal people, not cold email people, and I've heard people complain like, "Hey, my invoice, like I'm supposed to get this invoice," and like the spam filters, like, wow. I think they're kind of just going through this like growing phase of like trying to combat cold email more, and then I think it's there's some damage collateral on like the normal user side too. Specifically to inboxing on Microsoft, I'm personally, and this is controversial, I personally am not super concerned with like the intricacies because if I sit here and I analyze for 10 hours a day, what am I going to do to try and inbox into Microsoft and then they change something tomorrow, or maybe like their spam filter can change the next day, that you're just like dumping in all this time into this narrow algorithm change that might just totally change tomorrow. One thing that I've heard that generally has worked well, again, speaking from anecdote, not speaking from like, hey, I've split tested 50 different things. Here's exactly what works. Anecdotally, a lot of it has to do with, length of copy, your copy being fingerprinted, that type of thing. I've heard people that have a lot more success if you just shorten your copy a lot. That's one thing that I've seen work well. Another thing, I'm trying to think because I have one customer who is like absolutely crushing. We just like lump all their stuff into one campaign and they're getting like 8% reply rate on like the leads. Whenever you calculate on email sent, it's probably like a 3 to 4, which is like what I would consider as high. And I think ESP matching might be one of those things that is contributing to that. But honestly, I think some of it is just like macro algorithm change. And my recommendation is to not necessarily just like hyper fixate on, hey, I need to figure out how to perfectly inbox and Outlook. I know a lot of people are struggling with it, and I know that there's definitely something wonky going up. I think that the way to counteract that is, yeah, number one, split test different things. Number two, try different copy. I think a lot of it is more so on the copy side than on the delivery side. But you split test different providers, split test different copy. I think those are probably like the two biggest things, and then yeah, just take the results at face value. So unfortunately, I don't have like a silver bullet, like, hey, do this tomorrow, you're instantly gonna inbox and Outlook. I would say try different things, but I wouldn't hyper fixate on it unless like 100% of your clients or 100% of your recipients are on Outlook and like it needs to happen. But even if you're getting like a 1 to 2% reply rate, which I would consider as like ballpark KPI, that you can still see plenty of results doing that. Obviously, it's not as high as you'd like it to be, but Microsoft, I think, is gonna at some point pull back and things ebb and flow. So I wouldn't be over my anti doomer view on it is just don't hyperfixate on it. I think things like this will change, and then if there's a hack in the meantime, it's probably shortening your copy and then having a bunch of email accounts. So yeah, awesome, appreciate you.
Thank you, Sam. Here you go. Avi, if you can turn on your video, I'll spotlight you, sir. Here we go. Can you unmute yourself?
Hey, Matt. So I have a question about automating personalization. From your experience, what are like the top 3 ways to personalize it based using Clay that you found really effective that have led people to open the cold emails and to continue reading them?
Yeah, so I think the best personalization, I mean, this is a buzzword right now in outbound, is you do relevancy, not personalization. So it's not just calling out like, hey, Avi, I saw your shirt's green. Here's my, my finance product, right? It's more something like, hey, Avi, or like, hey, Avi, I noticed that you're in this specific vertical, or hey, Avi, I noticed that you're using this technology. So those are like some obvious ones. It's like something related to your software, or like, for example, if they're following a competitor, that's not necessarily something you need Clay for. That's something you can like run a scrape for. But if they're following your competitor, that's an amazing like trigger or data point or relevancy point. Like, hey, I saw you're following this competitor. Here's how we're better. Or hey, I saw you're in this vertical. Here's how we can help. That's going to be the best type of personalization. Not like, hey, I wasn't sure. Like here's a restaurant we can go meet at, or like, hey, congrats on working at this company for this amount of years. If you want super general personalization, like you can stuff like, hey, name, I saw you've been working at Roll for amount of years. You can do that in Clay. Another one is you can call it like a coworker. Hey, John, wasn't sure if I should reach out to you, or insert coworker. You can do all kinds of stuff like that. But the best personalization is not going to be something where I'm like, hey, here's 10 of them. It's going to be stuff that is hyper specific to whatever product you're selling. If you're selling leadless software, go find other people using other leadless softwares. If you're selling cold email service, find people following Smartlead, find people following Clay, find people following your competitors, find people that are in certain titles and call out in their titles, and like find people, hey, I saw you don't have a DMARC record. Do you guys know what you're doing on outbound side? Like that type of stuff works the best. So relevancy is the best way to personalize, and there is no copy and paste answer to that. It's very dependent on your product or service. In your case, it might just be like reaching out to competitors or reaching out to people that have a pain point that's specific to your product, right? Hey, I saw you're using this software. I think you have this problem. Is this true? Here's what our product solves, blah, 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 blah. Make sense? Cool. Awesome. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Aviv. Next up, the man with the goatee, sir. I think the last time we met, it was on Shira's session. And Maroon, now I think I'm pronouncing it right. How are you, sir? How are you doing? There you go. Can you unmute now?
Yes. Hey, Akash. Hey, Matt. Thank you. Yes. I'm doing fine, man. How are you? Great.
All G, sir. All G. Love seeing you. Love the energy. Love your smile. Go for it. Go for your
Awesome.
questions.
So, Matt, regarding the minimum sending limit to have a good sense of a medium proper conversion rate. Regarding recruitment service specific, you have talked that you have experience like with a lot of different industries. What do you think of how big should the campaign be?
How big is in like how many leads you're importing at once?
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah. So I would say it depends on your segment. Like
Mhm.
the perfect campaign in the world is as many leads as possible that is super hyper segmented. The problem is those two
Mm.
things are at war with each other. If you want like, hey, I'm trying to, if you're trying to place a certain type of position, right? And you want to reach
Mhm.
out to people in Silicon Valley that have an open job role, that have blah, 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 right? All those
Mhm.
criteria that make your email better are going to make your list smaller, right? So there's no surefire answer. I've had campaigns that have had 500 people in them that have outperformed, like not on a reply rate percent, like not on a percentage basis, on an absolute basis.
Oh yeah.
Campaigns where I've had 500, 200 people that have outperformed ones that have like 5,000 people, right? Because again, when you go hyper segmented and you say something specific, it's better to do that than to just mass blast people with like a super generic message. Again, it depends on your offer, service, etc. So I would say there's no perfect answer. The best to one extreme, you're sending manual emails. To the other extreme, you're blasting everyone in the world with no personalization or no relevance. The crossing in the medium, which is what I'd recommend, is figure out what are the one, two, three things that people actually care about and that you're going to call out in your email, and then chop people up in those buckets and try and make those buckets as big as possible, right? Like make it as big as possible while keeping it personalized. And so I can't give like a sweet spot answer because we have customers who will upload 15,000 people at once in one campaign. Like I have a screenshot. I should probably post it on my socials or something. We have a campaign that's like 50,000 sends on the one campaign, just as like one kind of wide
Okay.
audience, and it crushes at like a 20-30% positive reply rate. In that case, it's like we don't need to do that. But on the other end, if you need to, if you are trying if you're looking for like a super simple answer, you call it 1,000, 2,000 leads. I think that's like a sweet spot number, but I don't like thinking in that view because you might be able to get a super big list that is relevant, or maybe you're artificially trying to make your list like too wide and you would get better results by doing it smaller. So very nuanced answer, but I would say like if you want the long and short answer, call it 1,000, 2,000 people at a time. But I have campaigns where we'll like make 5 campaigns of 100 people and those will like crush instead of like one campaign that's like 10,000 people and you'll get better results doing that. So if you have the time, make a bunch of little campaigns. If you can't, tread the line as much as you reasonably can. So
Okay. Okay. Thanks, Matt. A follow-up question regarding that.
go ahead.
About segmentation, we all know defined people function in Clay is broken. It doesn't work properly. What do you think is the best practice to find the persona regarding my services? Is it doing
So
manually?
yeah, I think all the find people function on Clay, I think they're using LinkedIn on the back end of that. So whatever you're doing inside Clay, I think you can do inside of Sales Nav or inside of LinkedIn's native search. All you do is like
Mhm.
a search, and then you can use a LinkedIn scraper on top of that. There's like Golden Leads is like one tool that you can scrape Sales Nav from. There's like Wizard. There's like a million tools that can scrape Sales Nav or
Mhm.
LinkedIn, so you can use a
Mhm.
tool like that. I know Lead Magic, for example, they have a specific scraper for open job roles. So if you're trying to scrape like triggers, like someone who's like hiring for a certain role, I would check out Lead Magic. I know that's one tool that I would use and look at. I think Apollo also has that filter, but I'm not sure how outdated it is. That's probably like the best thing you can do in like your specific case is scrape people that have like open job roles. And so you can use Lead Magic for that. If you're trying to replicate the find people in function role in Clay, then use Sales Nav for that. And then like some sort of LinkedIn scraper.
Mm. So that to find I'm just to get it right, the hiring manager for specific role. For example, I recruit data engineers. I'm looking now for a team lead data or a data analytics engineer, for example. Those function titles vary across a lot of across a lot of companies. So what will be the best practice to find at that specific persona? Is it doing manually? Is it doing? I'm new in the space,
Mm-hmm.
I really want to find the right person because I know if I send my candidate to a CTO, it's not the right person to contact. I need
Mm-hmm.
because the pain is at the team lead. He needs the engineer to help function the team. So so regarding to that, how can you find the right people at scale?
Yeah, I would say some part of it is you just don't know, right? So like if you look inside on my company and I have 4 people on my team, and you don't know looking in who's the right decision maker always. Sometimes you have to hit 2, 3, 4 decision. You're never going to know with 100% certainty unless it's publicly listed, right? If it's publicly listed, I think there are, again, some job scrapers where you can scrape like someone has a LinkedIn post and then there's like a hiring manager and you can find that person associated with that post. In reality, though, like who knows? Maybe the CTO is the right person at that company. The team lead might be the right person. If you know 100% of the time that's always the team lead, then don't scrape the CTO, just scrape the team lead. But every company, it's different. So that's why you want to hit multiple decision makers at that company. Does that make sense? So there's no you're never gonna wave a magic wand and be like, hey, I know for certain this is the right guy. And you can even ask in the email, like, hey, name wasn't like, are you the right person to talk to about this? Right. And if they're not, they might point you and say, hey, there's another guy. So that's what I'd say. Like, you're gonna have to hit multiple people. There's not gonna be a perfect answer. You can't wave a magic wand and go inside their company and like, hey, that's the guy, because it depends, right? And I would just hit multiple people at the same company and then ask them if they're the right person. Sound good?
Fair. Thanks, man.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Will answer your question, Maron? See you on the next one, sir.
Yes, sure thing.
All right. Last 2 questions for the session today. Rates, if you can turn on your video, I'll spotlight you. Or maybe I can ask you to unmute. You can shoot your question directly.
Hey, how's everybody doing? Can you guys hear me?
Amazing.
All G.
Awesome. Hey, so specific question for you, Matt. I see like a lot of like the cold email, like people are using the application for white collar industries or tech industries, like marketing agencies and things like that. How much have you seen it used towards like blue collar industries, like construction, stuff like that for lead generation?
Yeah, so there's the way I like to think of most data, it's either there's like a bunch of niche databases that they get data from who knows where. The big data providers like Apollo, ZoomInfo, ListKit, for example, those companies scrape primarily from LinkedIn, right? So that's not going to be as applicable for you because the average construction guy is not on LinkedIn. On the other hand, there's a lot of scrapers that do Google Maps. And so that's more tailored around blue collar. Most people that have some sort of blue collar business are probably on Google Maps, have a Google My Business, or their business is going to be available on Google. And so the way that I would scrape, if you're running into those type of verticals, there's a tool called Outscraper that does this. Clay has a native Google Maps scraper. You're basically going to want to do Google Maps centric scraping tools. So Outscraper is one of them. Clay has a native one. There's some like APIs that you can call to do that. But I would say the short, simple answer is look into a tool like Outscraper, and then that's also going to guide you into other ones. But the general genre of scraper you should be looking at are like Google Maps scrapers.
That's all I needed, man. I appreciate it. Thanks for
Of
all
course.
you do.
Awesome.
For sure.
Thank you. And Matt, just reconfirming, was it Outscraper?
Outscraper, yeah. Outscraper. And that's just one. There's a million tools to do this. So just you could Google Maps scraper and you'll find like a million tools that do this. So that's just one that you can use.
Got it, sir. Last question for the day. We have Victor. Can you unmute yourself? There you go.
Hey, Matt. Hey, Kosh. Thanks for doing this.
Of course.
I'm running an email campaign for a private equity firm. And so we're reaching out to business owners in specific niches and industries. I'm curious, what campaigns have you seen perform well for private equity clients? I guess my part 2 of that question is, do you typically run longer emails that kind of highlight the private equity firm's track record and example case studies, or is that more of a follow-up email?
Yeah. So for private equity specifically, I think that's a pretty good vertical because like the angle you're basically reaching out to people is like, hey, do you want to sell your business?
Yeah.
And so like I think a lot of people are interested in potentially selling a business. If someone went to me and it's like, hey, I could offer you millions of dollars, like obviously that's going to get some level of interest. I would split test both of them. Historically, I've seen the shorter ones perform better. Again, get in the mindset of the guy who's getting the email. Does he really care about the track record? Does he really care about the private equity business? The mindset of whether or not you're going to explore it is more so just like, are you even in market to potentially sell your business? There's some people who are like, I'm going to give it to my kids. I don't want to touch it. I'm never going to sell it out to an institutional person. And then the guys that are willing to sell, they're probably gonna get a million different calls and just do some feelers. I think that there's certain things that should be reserved for a sales call, and there, or in that case, a deal origination call, or whatever the industry language you want to use is. There's more. Some stuff is better suited for the call, and some stuff is better suited for the email. The point of the email is to pique interest and get them on a call as soon as possible. You don't want to be conducting the, hey, here's our selling points, here's our track record, here's our growth, here's blah, 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 blah. The core, getting in the mindset of the buyer and going back to what I said at the beginning of the webinar, which is like, think of why, ask why do these people get on the call and are interested in the first place? It's that they're looking to sell their business. I don't think a lot of them are sitting there and doing like the analysis until the sales call specific to this industry. But the macro, split test it. I don't think there's necessarily a right or wrong answer. Like personally, I've seen better results just been like, hey name, saw you run this type of business. Are you looking to sell? Here's what we do. Call to action. Or just, hey name, are you looking to sell? Let's have a conversation. You can split test both of them. Yeah. That's gonna be an answer you're gonna get better from running your own A/B split test, but I'm more of a fan of doing shorter stuff. So
I mean, one of the issues is we're getting really high reply rates. And so I don't want to like waste our time with like tire kickers who like don't even hit our like size criteria. And so in that instance where, you know, we're dealing with a bunch of owners who are interested in selling, but you know, I don't want to waste our time taking all these calls. So is it better to set those to mention those filters in the first email and say like, hey, only if you're interested in like seriously selling, and if you're above X million in revenue, blah blah blah, should we schedule a follow-up call?
I would recommend, first of all, problem having too much reply rates is a phenomenal problem, and getting too many people that like a lot of them are unqualified. I know that's specific to private equity. You're going to get a lot of like, hey, I want to sell my business, and they have nothing, right? And they ended up on the lead list, and you don't want to waste your time. Two things. First thing I would say is, I don't know what you're doing on the filtering side. If you are doing some level of filtering, bump up the head counts, right? Revenue filters typically aren't accurate. If you, let's say you have an EBITDA target that all the businesses need to be doing 2 million EBITDA, 10 million revenue, something, whatever, go look at the industry averages and look at what the revenue per head count is, and then filter for people that have that or above. That's going to help a lot, right?
Yeah.
Other thing you can do, this is more of an operational side. I'm more of the fan of like having less friction than more. And so like, you know, if you can have a dedicated person that can screen those calls, I think that would honestly potentially be worth an investment. Because the more friction you add, like imagine I reach out to you, Victor, right? And I'm like, let's say I'm just door knocking, outbound example. Knock on your door. I'm like, hey, Victor, would you be interested if I could cut your tree down? And you're like, yeah, that sounds great. And you're like, awesome. Here's this 10-page questionnaire before you're allowed to speak to me, or for me to do an audit or like explore. You'd be like, dude, I don't like this guy. Like you just came to me and told me you can cut down my tree. And now you're telling me I need to fill out this 10-page form. Like, just go check out give me the quote, right? Like, just tell me the info. And so like, that's why I'm not a huge fan, because the friction, like it just sounds so unnatural. Like, hey, Victor, are you looking to sell your business? If yes, make sure you have 5 million EBITDA. Make sure you do this. Make sure like just get on the call with the guy. Pay someone to get on the call, do some screening. That's like the whole role of an SDR, is to qualify someone for like an appointment. So that's my 2 cents on it. I would say it's better to leave the low friction, just hire like someone to do that work. But if you really do want to filter it out, you know, bump up the head counts, and then yeah, you can have a qualifying question in the Calendly form, like, hey, how soon are you looking to sell your business? But yeah,
got it. No, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Of course.
All right. Thanks, Victor. And we come to the end of the session. Matt, thank you so much. Good to have you back. And this one was a banger as well. So you gave us a lot of things to mark, note, follow, and this was really insightful for us. And just a quick round of reiterating things. One, Smart is a part of the expert panel with a couple of other OGs like him. To book a call with Matt, 2 criteria. One, you'll have to be in the custom 90K plan or above. And how do you book a meeting? You drop an email to me and I'll set up the call for you guys, right? And thank you for staying back. 5 lucky winners get 12,000 email verification credits. And Pro Plan users convert to custom. Let's get Vibe a new set of mic and everything that he needs so that his audio is loud and clear. Yeah, but with that said, thank you so much for taking the time, everybody. Thank you so much, Matt. Three constant thing in life of taxes, death, and office hours every Thursday. We'll see you all in the next session. Respect you all taking the time. Have a great one, guys. Cheers.